Morning, Senator Nitka. How are you doing?
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Today is Friday morning, February 19th, and this is the Vermont Legislative Tourism Caucus. And today we're going to hear some thoughts and some concerns from from representatives from our events and lodging industries here in Vermont, and sort of ideas on how we can move forward with regard to getting them restarted. So I'm going to just introduce the three guests and then turn it over to them, and they'll do their thing. So Sheri Baraw Smith is the Vice President and General Manager of Stoweflake Mountain Resort and Spa here in Stowe. Originally founded by her grandparents in 1963, the Stoweflake has been a family-owned and operated resorts for 58 years. Mike Lubas started his career at the Vermont Tent Company after graduating from UVM in 1991. He was hired as the company's third full-time employee and ended up purchasing the business along with two longtime colleagues in 2015 from the founder, John Krabby Jr. And Talena Companion advocates for the state's wedding industry with the Vermont Association of Wedding Professionals, and she's the owner, DJ at Premier Entertainment and Events. So folks, I'm going to turn it over to them. If you have any questions, just raise your blue hand. I'll follow along and I'll make sure you guys, but I know that they're going to be welcoming questions as they're doing their presentations and discussions and afterwards as well. So jump in anytime and I'll follow along. Thanks, Sheri. I think I'll turn it over to you.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you all for giving us some time to share our experience and where the industry is at. I think that, one of the really important things here is that as an industry, we're working the best we can together to keep this industry alive in Vermont. The challenges around that are some days feel almost insurmountable, but I think that through better communications, and some of which can be helped, that we can save this industry. We can, which is, as you know, one of the largest industries in Vermont. Our sector, and I speak for not just lodging. Obviously, I do have, 150 guest units that I have, but I also 50% of my business is normally weddings and events. So even with the limited cross-state travel and in-state travel that is allowed, I automatically, going forward, do not have 50% of my business. And you add into the others that you're going to hear from where it's 100% of their business, and you can see the domino effect of what is occurring here. The toll that this has taken, not just on each individual business, but all of the Vermonters that are a part of our industry. It's every day I look at my staff that I am able to have, my staff that I'm not able to have, and the mental and financial toll is amazing. It's amazing to me, the perseverance, but we can't do this indefinitely. And one of the messages that I think that we really need everyone to hear, and I realize that, pieces of this the legislature can help with, but part of it's getting the message out, is we need to know the plan. When it comes to weddings and events, we sit here, yesterday alone, I had 3 events cancel for October because they don't know if they can plan for their event. And so we're not talking about tomorrow. We're talking about, I looked at April through October, that happens to be my fiscal year. And right now, every piece of group business that we have is precarious. And mostly because they don't know if they can come. And I'm talking about 30-person events up to, the couple 100-person events. And should they all cancel, and it happens to everybody, the economic impact on the state is so tremendous. And we understand safety first. We get that. We believe in that. But we need to let people know what the plan is. And then as an industry, we can save some of this business because we can communicate to them what is needed. barring reopening, and right before I say the statement, I thank the state for what they have done for business. That got some businesses through for a little bit, but it will not get us through another year. It just simply won't. The overhead, the costs, there. I live week to week. Every Wednesday morning, I wake up praying I covered payroll. It's that simple, and I'm not unusual. So if we cannot get this information on how we're going to reopen, if we're not going to be able to fully reopen, then we need to find a way to support this industry and everybody in this industry. I shared yesterday that I'm going to share a statistic. And again, thank you for the monies that were out there from the state. I am a large enough business. I'm a capped business. So that covered 10% of my revenue loss. And I had a 70% loss. So again, we need to figure out how to communicate we're going to open so we can save these businesses, and we need to figure out how to help everybody through all the steps of it. I think
Sheri, it looks like we have a question. Representative Peterson?
Thank you, Representative Sherman. Sheri, my question is, you may not be willing to answer, but in your heart of hearts, do you think you can do some of these events safely at your place if you were allowed to?
Yes, sir, I absolutely do. And last summer when we had the more limited opening, the 75 max inside and the 150 outside, I actually did 2 events. And one was a wedding and one was a religious retreat. The guests, all of us have put in protocols that are at or above what the requirements are. It was amazing to me to see wedding guests dancing with masks, but they did it because they knew if they didn't, they couldn't have their event. And my staff is trained that if they don't, that they shut it down. So the last thing we want is to open and then have an outbreak. But I think if you look at your stats on the outbreaks, they're not generally coming from this type of an event.
Right. And to follow that up, what is the requirement right now for an event, say a wedding? What are the state requirements?
Well, because
how much do they restrict you? What can and can't you do?
Well, as of the November new restrictions, because you can't have any multi-parties at a table, there are none.
There are none. Okay.
Sheri, I'm going to jump in real quick.
But you feel,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Representative Pearson, I just actually, at the request of Commissioner Pichek, I collected some of the data that you just mentioned. And within our industry, we did approximately 1,000 weddings between August 1st and November 14th, when the multi-household gatherings and all gatherings were no longer allowed. And throughout those 1,000 weddings, approximately half of them were between 5 guests and 50 guests. And the other half were between 51 and the cap at 150. And we only had transmission at one of those events. And the transmission, it's not a hard science. There were other events surrounding that wedding event where protocols were followed, such as a rehearsal dinner, a goodbye brunch, that were private events, again, without protocols, most likely maskless. So if we had to guess, transmission happened outside of the structured event. So we absolutely hosted these events safely within the guidelines that the state gave us. We're thankful for those guidelines, and we'd like to do them again this year once there is proper virus suppression and we're able to be outside as well. We're definitely not asking to have a 100-person wedding tomorrow.
Right. I'm just trying to figure out if the restriction was lifted of having other, different households getting together, would you be able to safely do it? That's what I'm after. That was the purpose.
When there's virus suppression, yes. Right now, probably not.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Talena.
So So I'm actually gonna, Sherry, you conclude, I'm gonna continue on, Talena, are you up, or Mike, or?
Talena's up.
Okay.
I think Mike's next. I mean, if we're going by the agenda, but.
Okay, I can go. Just want to, I mean, Sheri summed it up very well, but just to give everybody sort of an overview of what we do and our tent companies and event rental companies do. There's a perception that we are all tent companies, and that's sort of what we do. We set up tents, we take them down. And the perception last year was tent companies were super busy. They didn't need any help. They did a lot of work at schools. We did outdoor restaurant tents, but that's such a small piece of what we do. We're really event companies. We provide the infrastructure for basically every single special event that happens in the state of Vermont. Weddings, corporate events, music festivals, graduations. We provide power, we provide tables, chairs, stages. Every single event that you've been to that's an outdoor event and indoor event, there has been an event rental company like ours a part of it. So yes, we are struggling right now. You know, we had $1.9 million lost last year, an unmet need. The state money helped tremendously. The PPP money helped tremendously. But we were still $1 million short at our business. You know, we're negotiating with our banks, with our loans to pay interest only, negotiating with our landlord. We have a $400,000 yearly rent that we pay to our landlord that we don't know how we're going to pay this year. I mean, it's a real hard number that we just don't know where that money's going to come from right now. So it's a huge struggle. I feel very lucky that we're still in business right now. I feel very lucky. And, you know, we all thought by this time, this pandemic would be over, we'd be back to work. But I've had zero revenue since November, since the state mandate of no household gatherings. November, December, January, February, I'm in month 4 of basically zero revenue in my business. And not just mine, I would probably say that for most of the other rental companies in Vermont as well. So we're faced with challenges, and the lack of guidance from the state, as Sheri said, events are going away. We just lost Champlain College commencement is going virtual. Middlebury College just announced that they're having graduation for students only. I lost my UVM commencement contract. A colleague of mine, Lyndon and Johnson's commencements are going virtual. Middlebury College just canceled their reunion for the second week in June, 4 months away because of lack of guidance. The Jazz Festival, Burlington Wine and Food. I could list so many of them. Vermont Captive Insurance in August just went virtual and canceled their contract with us. So, literally $500,000 in revenue in just those events that I just mentioned, because nobody knows if they can have their event this summer.
Mike?
Yep.
Mike, I'm just going to interrupt. This is Heidi. We have a question. I think it went up earlier, but I'm going to open it up to her anyway,
Sure.
if I could. Representative
Yeah,
Austin?
absolutely.
Yes, I'm wondering if there was a way that people could certify that they were vaccinated, if that would allow you to, I don't know if it's in, people would be coming from different states, but at least you could ask, let people know that whoever comes has to be vaccinated.
We're throwing all those ideas out there. People that are vaccinated.
I assume so.
Right.
Yeah.
We're and there's all kinds of different ideas. Vaccinated, rapid testing, getting people tested before they have events. There's all kinds of different options that can help us do events safer and have safer events. And as Talena said, and Sheri said, we did quite a few weddings last year, smaller, socially distanced, cocktail parties seated, no bars, We did events last year and we did them safely. But now, because people don't know if they can have their event, we have event planners that are saying that they're taking their event to New Hampshire or New York or Connecticut because they're allowing events. So that uncertainty is really causing concern in the event community because people are leaving Vermont. And if we don't have events and all of our events leave Vermont, we're not going to be here. It's just a plain hard fact. There won't be event rental companies here to support the industry when it comes back in 2022. It's just a cold hard fact that we won't make it without help. I mean, yes, if we can get some financial support, but it would need to be significantly more than the capped out number that my business received this year. And, you know, I have friends in the industry around the country that have had their best years ever, you know, and we're sitting here like struggling to survive because every other state is, not every other state, but a majority of states are allowing these outdoor events. And we're not there, you know, so.
Mike, can I, sorry, now this is begging the question, and this is to all of you. And what specifically are you asking for? And you've had these conversations with the administration.
Very much.
I know.
Yeah, I'll let Talena respond to that because she's been doing a lot on that.
I think that would be helpful if we
Sure.
know what you specifically are.
Yeah, so I do want to be crystal clear. It's a reopening plan, not reopening, that we're asking for, right? Currently, and I appreciate all of you guys, the whole idea of the Tourism Caucus and being vested in this sector thriving. We really appreciate all the work that you're doing and that you're listening to our stories and working every day to help us out. We've clearly asked Commissioner Pichek by March 1st to give us some kind of indication as to what's possible. So as I mentioned, last year, there was a benchmark put into place, right? There was a certain level of risk that the state decided was acceptable. We had great virus suppression over the summer. We were allowed to have gatherings between 75 and 150 people based on if you were inside and if you were outside. And for the most part, we followed restaurant guidelines in terms of safety. Representative Charlotte, do you have a question?
Not, and just keep going for right now. I know Representative Tachka has a question, but I want to hear the rest of this pitch basically first.
And the vaccine wasn't around last year, right? So we all have a strong understanding that once individuals who are over the age of 65, as well as those with chronic conditions in our most vulnerable population have been vaccinated, that brings us to a lower risk profile, right? So it's very reasonable to believe that once we're able to go outside, once we have virus suppression, and once the most vulnerable have been vaccinated, that events would once again be possible. We also have a decent pipeline of understanding. I know it's only about 3 weeks at a time of how much vaccine we're getting, right? So by best estimates, they know right now that that's going to happen in the April timeframe. So again, we're not asking for a date. We're asking for those benchmarks, whether they happen in May or June or July or August. We can all follow along, right? Twice a week, we're all given all of these metrics at the pressers, and they tell us how much ICU bed space is available, how many vaccinations have been distributed, which groups are fulfilled. They let us know how many cases we have on a 7-day average, all of those things. So we're just asking for them to set those benchmarks and essentially those goals that bring us to the risk profile that allows us to gather safely once again. Then
so that you can book events, or at least so you can book events and also tell people who have already booked events that this is where we're at now. This is
so there's some level of confidence, right? So as Mike said, all of our colleges, even though Dr. Levine got in front of the TV and said, maybe we could have a Memorial Day parade, right? That's around the time of graduation, but they have zero confidence that they can have these events. So it's going to be incredibly depressing if, I'm hanging on by a thread, as are my colleagues, to these couples who have already postponed their wedding. They've been engaged for 2 or 3 years, and they would love to have their June wedding, right? They're flexible. They've been around, they understand that we're in the middle of a pandemic. They're willing to pare down their guest list. But if they can't even, if they have no idea that even a 20 to 50 person event is possible, they just can't plan on it, and they have to postpone again or elope and lose their dream. And that's it. It would just be so devastating if we ended up in a situation like we did last year, where they announced on May 29th that we could open June 1st. That doesn't give anyone enough lead time to confidently send out their wedding invitations. You've never gotten a wedding invitation a week before a wedding, ever. It's 8 to 12 weeks in advance.
Okay, this is great. We've got a couple of questions. Representative Yantachka.
Yeah, thank you. I have a constituent, wedding planner, well, not a wedding planner, but who owns a wedding event space, the Old Lantern here in Charlotte. And
Lisa
Galjak. She wrote me an email saying that she is fearful of lawsuits.
Yeah.
Can lawsuits actually be
It's a real challenge for our industry right now, especially because, unfortunately, their clients' lawyers are pushing what's considered an impossibility clause, because there are no, many places like Lisa's are closed right now because you can't go to the Old Lantern and, and grab dinner or anything like that. They host private events. And they're saying at this moment, you cannot fulfill the contract that we have, even if it's in July, August, September, October, because there is no forecast that says she can open again. So they're using that to force non-refundable deposits to be refunded, and it's crippling. Whereas if there was a forecast that says, once we get to this point, you can have events again, that would take that away.
I see. Okay. That explains it. Thank you.
Representative Baraw.
Thank you. I'm actually going to speak to the group, not as a representative, but as a individual who owns a hospitality-oriented business with my cafe. We also have a catering arm. So I'm experiencing a lot, if not all of what they are seeing. And right now, I'm just echoing a lot of what has already been said. But just the other day, I lost an October wedding for all of these reasons. We cannot give them any type of idea of what it's going to look like. I mean, and what we're also seeing is a lot of, with these lawsuit scenarios, to some of the conversations I've had, these are people who were supposed to get married last year, pushed to this year, were understanding. They worked with us as an industry. They totally got it. But now, what are we going to tell them? Like, oh, you might have to push another year. We don't know what's going to happen in August, September, whatever. And that is the point where they're like, we're hitting this like breach of contract. The middle of last summer, myself and my management team, we decided to not take deposits anymore because we had to kick back so much money when we had no money to events that were canceling. So that's just a decision we made as a business. But to this lawsuit component now there's like the compounded, not only financial stress, but the mental stress that goes along with it. It's starting to impact people's physical health. So there it really is. And I mean, I don't want to sound alarmist, but there is a desperate need for just a glimmer of an idea of what this year might look like for the events industry, and the restaurant industry for that matter too. That's a different association. That's a different side conversation to this, but I won't take up any more of the time. I just wanted to jump in with my own eyes here.
That was good. That was helpful, Matt. We appreciate it. And yeah, we got to figure this out. Representative Hango.
Just a really quick, also personal note. I feel so much for all of you who are in this industry. I just cannot imagine what it's like for you, because you have people like myself, the mom of a future bride, who's thinking about planning a wedding and trying to decide, where do we have it? Do we do it outside? Do we do it inside? And there is no way that I could make a decision right now in 2021, even about a wedding that would be happening in 2022. I am so fortunate that my daughter isn't getting married for 3 years now. But I cannot imagine being the parents of a bride or groom, or even the bride and groom themselves, and having to negotiate contracts with you folks. I have no idea how much stress you must be under, but my heart goes out to you. And whatever we can do to help you, please let us know.
Representative Dolan.
Hi, good morning, and thank you, Heidi, for organizing this discussion and everyone participating. My question is about that next step. Perhaps we can write a letter to the administration. Can we organize a meeting, perhaps virtually, with the administration to talk about this? This is such an important part of all of Vermont's economy. Certainly, these are real businesses that are really hurting, and we need to stand up for them. And so I'm very interested to know a little bit more about why or whether the administration has responded to these concerns. And if not, I'm very much in support of us working together to try to have a continued conversation about this.
Carrie, I'm glad you just spoke and brought that up, because that gives us that's a good transition. Because I'm thinking the same thing. If there's a possibility that we can help move this along, I'd like to find out a little bit about, like Carrie said, Talena and Sheri, Mike, what the reaction, what you've received in response from Commissioner Pichek, and whether or not, if you have a formal letter that you request, that you gave to him or to them in general, and because in my mind anyway, what you talked about makes sense. Just like in the summer when we were able to do things because we had those metrics in place, and things were happening, and things were happening safely. So Talena, Mike, Sheri, if you could just tell us where you think things stand with the administration at this point.
So the Vermont Association of Wedding Professionals had a meeting with Commissioner Pichek. It was great. He was a phenomenal listener, and we did talk about all of these metrics, so like I said, it seems reasonable and like we're on the right path. The administration is just really hesitant to really put their foot down and draw a line in the sand. He was very supportive of what we were asking for. And then I joined on to a letter with, which I believe has been circulated, and you've all had an opportunity.
Yeah, I should have reminded people that I did send to the caucus members a letter that was from the Lake Champlain Chamber and other signatories, of which Talena was one, asking for some items that was for a late January letter, but yeah.
Yeah. And so, we also understand that Commissioner Pichek does not make these decisions. They are certainly made at a higher level. And so we certainly went to that level. And as a group, we spoke with Secretary Curley and Deputy Secretary Ted Brady. And again, we told our story and really let them know. And, the royal we here is wedding professionals, it's fairs and field days, it's Run Vermont, it's Burlington Parks and Recs. I mean, if you want to have a event in Vermont, one of us has our hands in that event, right? So we all came collaboratively. And again, stress, we are not asking for a date, we are asking for metrics, because we are seriously paralyzed with our business decisions. I just got approved for my PPP. It's sitting in my inbox. I've gotten about 3 reminders to sign it, and it's a heavy weight on my shoulders. I am exceptionally grateful for the money and the opportunity to get it and to have it forgiven. I don't know what to do with it right now. I don't know if I can start hiring, if I can start having events in 60 days and I can do that employee onboarding, or if I need to save every single penny and wait. And so that's really what I need to know. And to everyone else's point, I just had a wedding. I'm going down to DC May 15th because that's where they're going to have their wedding instead of here in Vermont. And it's just the idea of whether or not, so we can have a Memorial Day parade, possibly. Can we have a marathon? Isn't that just a faster parade, essentially, right? And I do know that the marathon submitted a really phenomenal plan about how they could potentially do it safely and at a smaller level and staggered starts and all of those types of things. And they weren't given a response, right? And we haven't been given a response to our request that is once 65 and older plus chronic conditions are vaccinated, right? 3 weeks following that, which Dr. Fauci says at that point in time, they have, they get the max benefit out of the vaccination, that we could open 75% indoors and 100% outdoors with those protocols that we all followed last year in terms of masking and hand washing stations and distancing and everything else into place. And again, we've yet to receive a response. So whatever you can do to continue to push for a response and allow us to have some level of forecasting so we're no longer paralyzed, that's the number one thing that's going to allow us to move forward. We already need grants. The ACCD and Commissioner Goldstein are already well aware of what this is costing us. Every single week, every single month. They have all of our applications. They've run all of the numbers. They understand what the unmet need is. So I don't know if anyone's waiting to see what's in the stimulus package so they know that they have the money to tell us to wait longer, or what is, the linchpin in this decision. But we need one. We need to know if we've got to cut costs and rely on grants and hang on for a little bit longer. If that's what we have to do for the safety, then we'll do it. We will partner with the state and with the Department of Health once again. But if we need to ramp up, we need the lead time so we can hit the ground running.
So
Sorry, Heidi.
go ahead. No, go ahead, Sheri.
If I can jump in. I'm also, just for full disclosure, I'm on the board of the Vermont Lodging Association. And we've been working in the same direction as, everybody on this call. One of the things, and we too have had our conversations with Commissioner Pichek and so forth. We asked for a meeting with the governor, which we have a very futuristic one, like a month out. But in a disappointing note, because part of what we're talking about here is how's it affecting everybody, not just the business, and the mental health piece of this for everyone on this call. I mean, I can only imagine how hard it is for you to all be legislators on Zoom. But Dr. Levine refused our request for a meeting. And we're sitting here watching comments about the importance of mental health through the pandemic and why school sports are restarting. And I'm a proponent of that. It's for the kids' mental health. Well, what about all of the workers who are not working right now, or the business owners who are desperately trying to keep Vermont stores open? And so, you add that's a part of the business issue here, is the mental health piece. And that was in this process that we've all been a part of for now a year, effectively. That was one of the more disappointing moments for us. So we're heard by the short answer is we're heard by some, but they can't give us the answers.
It sounds like the answers are, the decisions, as it has been all along, are being made at the Department of Health level. And that's and that's where we need to, I guess I'd like to, and I'm not quite sure how, maybe Stephanie, if you have some ideas too, but I'd like to see if we might just follow up on Carrie's Carrie's comments and ideas about how we might be able to impact this as a caucus, and whether that is with a meeting or with a letter, a request letter from the caucus, if the caucus agrees, or if just, I guess, I mean, it would be more powerful, obviously, if it was coming from the caucus as a whole, the requests for, and again, this isn't for reopening, it's for a reopening plan, so that people can plan, and again, talk to those folks in charge of event, who the events that are already booked, and try to give them some indication of what how things will move forward, and also of those that want to book. Otherwise, we're going to lose these to other states. And that's kind of the worry that I have, and that is so I'm wondering if maybe if there's an opportunity, and if I remember correctly, you guys said that you wanted that, Talena, I think you said that you wanted something by March 1st, but obviously that's coming up quickly. But I'm wondering if the Tourism Caucus, if those who are members here would think that this is a good idea to either a meeting or a letter or both, request a meeting with Dr. Levine and the Department of Health, and Lindsay Curley, and or a letter from us as a caucus. I guess I'm kind of throwing that out there for maybe nodding of heads or even just.
I'd recommend both.
Yeah.
Hit them with a letter laying out the details that holds a request for a face-to-face or a virtual to virtual.
Okay.
So that's, I mean, the clock's running. We're running out of time. We're already losing events.
That's the thing. I don't think we have time.
There's also, I mean, we also have to think about the long range brand damage to not only the individual businesses, but the state as well. We've spent decades building up this marquee brand for events, and people are already getting trashed on social media by people whose events have canceled. Same thing's happening in the restaurant industry. I mean, one of the larger restaurant groups in Burlington has had all kinds of problems with negative brand exposure, I'll call it. So
I do want to bounce off of Representative Byrong's point for 1 second, which is that I've also been working with Commissioner Pelham over at Tourism on two things. One, safe community events. FEMA believes that they can help us fund these because there is a driving need for the community's mental health. We all want to get outside. We all want to do some type of events. And additionally, the idea of branding. And so we're also very supportive and trying to push in any way additional marketing dollars that can help to bring people back into the state and build that brand that we've worked so hard for. And, because we have had this tremendous industry of events that has shown incredible year-over-year growth, and we do not want to lose that whatsoever. Yeah. And that exposure, I don't want to go too much into a rabbit hole, but I think you all know that leads to second homeowners. That means other people get married here. They suddenly, they lived in Phoenix and they've never been here before, but they got a wedding invite, and next year they vacation here again. And so we really need to make sure that we're not missing out on those opportunities. And there's a huge multiplier that goes along with that.
Talena, I'm going to interrupt because we've got some questions. I want to get them. Yeah, but we absolutely, we completely agree with that. And we've been talking about the tourism funding and also the additional tourism marketing fund that's been proposed by the governor. Representative Austin.
Yes, I wonder if it would make sense if we joined up with maybe the Rural Caucus and the Workers Caucus as well, and see if they wanted to sign the letter once it's written. I think in the rural parts of Vermont, I bet a lot of weddings are held there, and they probably make a lot of money in their businesses there. And the Workers Caucus, I mean, those are your employees. So it's just an idea. Heidi, whatever you think.
I wrote it down. I think however we move forward, I think maybe it's we can draft something up and we can share it around and see what people's thoughts are. I think that's James. Who's that? Who's James' iPhone? Is that James Gregoire?
Yeah, that's me. I didn't change my name.
Okay.
Got lazy this morning. I just wanted to really second what Matt said. The plan itself is essential. Nobody can plan, but it's not just about the businesses, it's about people. And as I forget which one of the speakers said this, but the mental health aspect, this goes on too long. The mental health is probably even bigger than the finances, and the finances is pretty big. So I would sign on to that letter in a heartbeat.
Great. Representative Jerome.
Heidi, I would suggest that we schedule a meeting, try and schedule a meeting next week so we can kind of get this moving, and then at the same time follow up with a letter. The letter might take a little longer to get all the sign-ons. Well, maybe it won't, because what Sarita had said is really valid, and many of the members who are on the Tourism Caucus are also members of the Rural Caucus, and I'm sure we would all be supportive.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Why don't we, Stephanie, you and I, as the chair and vice chair, why don't we just start to try to get a meeting set up, and we can also then start to draft something, send it out to folks, and get your input on the edits and what have you, as well.
All right, let's start talking about it today then.
Yeah. Representative Dolan.
I'm happy to help out too, if that's, if you need another set of eyes. I wonder if we want to still aim for that March 1st deadline to help push the urgency of this, maybe focus the sign on to just those two caucuses, the Tourism and Rural Economic Development Caucus, the Red Wing Caucus, and have the governor, target the governor and Dr. Levine, and that way we know there's a mix there. And I think what was our folks here today talked about risk, and we have been buying down that risk. And so it is partly a political, partly a medical, obviously, but the mental health issues, the stability of this whole economy, I think it warrants inviting and having the governor there if possible.
I would like to stick to the March 1 date. I think it is important as people are planning. I just know, we have a family reunion scheduled in June that we rescheduled from last June here. And we still have it planned, but, and it's not huge. It's just my immediate family, but it's big enough that, I know people are planning these things, and they're going to plan them elsewhere if they don't plan them here. And if they have them already planned, they're going to ask for refunds back, which is virtually impossible, I'm sure, for Mike and Sheri and Talena right now. They probably don't have that cash. I will also say that
we've spent all that deposit money just to stay open.
Yeah.
Right. And so we've spent all that deposit money right now. So we're even if we have revenue on the books for this summer, we're working for half price.
Yeah.
Because we've already spent that money to stay open.
And I will say that from what I hear from folks in general is that these folks don't want more money from the state and feds. They want to be able to do their work, do their business, run their business. So right now it's not about profit. It's not about anything. It's just about trying to just stay open at this point. So stay alive.
Yeah, I also just want to point out that, like family reunions, things like that, these weddings, they will also occur. There will be rogue events, and Joe's backyard barbecue, which is not good for our community whatsoever. We need to give people safe options so that they don't feel as though their back is against a wall and that they have to make other plans.
Yeah. Representative Peterson.
Yes, thank you, Heidi. I second Representative Dolan's idea of having the governor there, because I don't think anything will happen unless he's brought into this. He's going to make the call. He'll listen to his health advisors, but in the end, he's got to make the call. So I would strongly recommend that get done. And from my experience with the petition I sent to everyone about youth sports, you're going to have to bang on people to get signatures. That's just my feeling. So. Thank you.
Okay. Representative McCoy.
Thanks, Heidi. So I'm just trying to get a timeline here. If we can get benchmarks, if, by, 65 and older and chronic are vaccinated, then you can do the 75% to 100%. What's your timeline? So say the governor says on April 1, by July 1, you can be open with these benchmarks. Is that enough time for you to have people call you and plan events? I'm just trying to figure out your timeline. If these benchmarks are met by July 1, you can, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
so in reality, people plan a good 9 to 18 months in advance. So, myself, most other people have it's certainly not the full calendar because we are losing these bookings left and right. But we do have a calendar for 2021 right now that we're trying to hang on to, and we're asking them to hold their decisions to the last minute possible, right? Because we're hopeful, because we do know we did this last year. The reality is we need it as soon as possible, right? Decisions are being made every single day. There is real fatigue out there for these families that are making an incredible financial decision, and a lot of them are throwing their hands up, right? And so we're strong. We will handle whatever we can. The most lead time that we can get is going to just allow us to thrive that much more and hang on to that much more and make better business decisions, because each day our paralyzation is costing us money, whether it's we're putting money in the wrong place for our business in terms of employees or other fixed costs or whatever, as well as losing bookings. So if there's a decision made March 1st that says something like, once you meet these 4 benchmarks, you can have events again of a similar size to last year, just saying that is going to give people tremendous hope that we have a starting point. And then, like I said, we get to watch weekly together and make decisions together, right? So we understand that the variant could come in, different things could happen, but if we all understand the goal that we're going towards, we can say, it looks like we'll have enough virus suppression if we continue on this trend line in 6 weeks. So your wedding is in 10 weeks. Do you feel comfortable sending out your invitations? And we get to make a decision together that's more informed. And that's really what we're looking for.
Okay.
And can I just jump in 1 second too? And it's like it for the client, for the customer, it just sets them so emotionally at ease. It gives them a degree of confidence that we can do something. It just giving them instead of just being like, we have absolutely no clue, we can give them like, this is what the possibility looks like. And that's enough to allow us to plan.
I will say that this, the vaccine rollout is happening. It's going. Hopefully, it gets faster. Hopefully, the rollout gets faster. But if we can't have some sense of certainty, even though we have this vaccine rollout happening, if we can't have some sense of certainty for the summer, then why are we bothering with the vaccines? Frankly, I mean, I don't mean to be, but that's a real thing that people are talking about. If I'm vaccinated and I have 2 shots, I should be able to have some sort of why bother with it? So I guess that's one of my frustrations, as somebody watching this and watching some of the impact that that the lack of a reopening plan is having on folks. So
that, Heidi, Representative Sherman, that actually goes to not only weddings and events, but every day we get calls from individual travelers going, I'm vaccinated, why can't I come to Vermont?
Yeah, and that's another issue.
And people who are trying to book for fall foliage called and said, I'm vaccinated, will I be able to come without quarantine?
Yeah.
And we have to say, as of today, you still have to come with quarantine, and then they go book in New Hampshire.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's another, not another, that's related. I mean, it's all interrelated, but Representative Jerome.
So Heidi, I guess I would suggest that if Representative Byron could help us with this letter from his perspective, and if Talena could, and the other members the other folks who are here from representing the tourism industry could send us like their 4 bullets that they wanted that their top priorities are, then we can try to consolidate that into a really short, concise letter with our request.
I think that's a great idea. Matt and Sheri, Mike, and Talena, you guys can do that for us. You have
Absolutely,
mine.
today.
More than happy.
Yeah, could you do it today? Because we need to get the letter out by Monday.
Yeah.
All about the urgency. You got it.
Yep.
Representative
I guess
Mango.
just
Okay, Matt, do you have something else to say?
I was just gonna say, if somebody wants to frame it out and shoot me it, and I can just help touch it up.
Yep, we'll do that.
Just a quick point about the vaccines, and I hear what you're saying. I have a 91-year-old mother who could not get a vaccine in New York State where she lives. And she was like, well, why even bother? Because I'm not going to be able to go anywhere anyway. And, I can't come to Vermont to visit you, and I'm going to have to wear a mask anyway. So there is that fatigue out there. So I had the meeting the other night with Dr. Levine because of spiking cases in Franklin County. And he did offer some hope, which I want to give all of you, that they are absolutely thinking about and looking at the scenario of folks who are vaccinated being able to come to Vermont and gather in Vermont. So what you're asking for, I don't think is anything crazy and out of the ordinary. I think they are thinking about it. They just have not made that decision yet. So this letter could possibly push the decision to a point in time where you're going to be able to run your businesses as you would like to in the summer and not be kept in limbo. So great idea about the letter. And if anybody has not read the letter from the Lake Champlain Chamber of Commerce, it's quite good. So take hope from that.
Great. And Representative Austin.
Yep. Just on the letter, I would suggest you put some, money factors in, the economic impact, not only to your industry, but to the state, because that always grabs my attention, is this is how much money we're losing. So please include that.
Okay.
That might be something. Is anyone here today in Senate Commerce with Ted Brady? He might be able to help put a figure on that.
We'll try to do some research on that. Okay. Representative Dolan, you had your hand up, but now it's down, right? So
yeah, I was just going to suggest, I think if we focus the letter on those economic factors is critical. I'd hate to put conditions like a vaccine is a condition of having an event. I hate to get into that. But I think if we stress the fact that we've been managing the risk, and this is an acceptable level of risk, that and we've been, thus far very successful at managing that risk. I think we might help stress that balance there and why we need to move forward.
Yep. Okay, well, it sounds like we have a lot of work to do. So I'm gonna, so Sheri, Mike, Talena, if you could follow up with an email to me, that would be great. Yep. Stephanie, Matt, I'll get in touch with you. We're gonna create this thing. In the meantime, Stephanie, you and I will ask for the meeting anyway, and we'll work on the letter at the same time. So thank you so much, Sheri, Mike, Talena, and we are, our thoughts are with you guys, and we're trying to do what we can, and certainly keep in touch with us, and we're going to do what we can to help out here.
You.
So
thank you. We really appreciate it.
Carrie, did you want to look at that letter too?
yeah, Carrie, you.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'm a professional editor, so I'm happy to look at it.
Like, there we go. Even better. Isn't Kathleen too, or something?
Yeah, she's better than me.
See, we got two of them.
I am. I'm happy to take a look at it. Sorry, I fully admit I'm multitasking, but I am listening.
No, I know. Absolutely. That's great. Okay. Thank you all again for being here and helping and sharing your stories and your challenges, and obviously the plan for the future, because we can talk about the hardships all we want, but really we wanted to really get an understanding of what the needs were, how we can move forward. So I think this was successful in that regard. So thank you all.
Great, thank you.
We'll be in touch.
Thanks very much. Good to see you.
Thank you, everyone.
Heidi, you want to stay on for a second?
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Hey, send that to me if you want me to take a look. Seriously, I'm happy. I was listening. Okay.
Yeah, no,
I
I
gotta
know.
bounce to committee.
Bye.
Hey, thanks, Matt. We'll be in touch. And Carrie, so we'll send